Okay, so today we're going to continue our study of quadratic functions, and it's going to be this process called completing the square. Now, this is going to be important for this unit test, for your standardized test, and it's really a continuation of manipulating quadratic functions. And so when we were factoring, I had one good input from a student say that was basically factoring is unfoiling. Nothing changes, you've just put it in a form where you can recognize its roots. Well, if you look at this function that I have written there, you can't actually factor that. It doesn't follow any of the patterns or the rules that would allow you to factor it nicely. But there is a way to put it into vertex form. So we covered that last unit, where you would read the vertex form, and your coordinate would be the opposite of what you see next to the x for your x coordinate, and then the number at the end was your y coordinate. And this process of completing the square takes this quadratic function that you have there, puts it through a number of steps, and your end result is vertex form. And so you can actually see the 1, -2 in the vertex form from this quadratic function. And where I'm going to start this is I'm just going to rewrite this over here to the left. But when I rewrite this, after the 2x, I'm going to leave a gap, because there's some stuff that we have to do, some side work we have to do, but the gap is going to be important. And let me change my pen ink. I'm going to go ahead and underline this -2, because our side work that we have to do is we have to take that coefficient that is written next to the x, the b coefficient. So in this case, this is -2. We have to divide this by 2. And we're going to get something. We're going to get -1, and I'm going to actually underline this as well. This is another important number for the process of completing the square. But once we divide by 2 and get -1, again, I underline this because it's going to be important later on. We have to then take this -1 and square it and end up with this 1. Now the 1 is going to be written right here in this gap, okay? And that's why I left the gap, because we have to now rewrite our function as f of x equals x squared minus 2x plus 1. And let me erase this actually and put the green in there to make it easier to see. This plus 1, we have our -1 at the end. And what is necessary, probably the most awkward part of completing the square, is that these have to remain equivalent. These functions have to remain equivalent as we do the rearranging. And so if we add this 1 here, we have to also then write it as -1 at the end, okay? And I'm going to go ahead and just to bracket this off, this is one chunk of the function that has to be grouped together, and then you have this other balanced part at the end. And the reason why I underlined this -1 is because we have to rewrite this now, and you guys were pretty good at this, if you were going to factor this down. It's a perfect square trinomial, and the actual number that you write there is that number that you got when you divided the middle coefficient by 2. So this -1 is what actually goes there when you do your x minus 1 squared. And now you just combine the stuff that's tacked on at the end. And that's it. It's done. We have completed the square. And if you were to write the vertex from this form, you would have it end up as 1, -2. And as you can tell, that matches completely with the graph that I had set up at the start of this video. So anyway, it takes practice. It feels like a lot of steps, but once you get the hang of it, there really aren't that many. But that side work that I have there in green, that's the critical part that you have to get used to. And also this +1, -1, this balancing act of writing new things in the function, but also balancing it so that they basically, it's a way to manipulate 0 is what it is. So that you have added things while not changing the actual function itself.